Biddiecast, your host, Sean Klein with Dave Fest. Dave, how's it going this week? You had a tough loss, didn't you?
Yeah, definitely one of those, games where I came in poaching, talking a big game, and I could talk the talk, but I couldn't walk the walk. It looks like that's for sure.
And dude, you were talking a big game. Let's just play this clip for a second.
But I love my team. I think my team is set, great for the future. I'm gonna move the forward. Undefeated. Walk over Paul's team. I'm saying 45 points plus. I think that.
Wow. All right, that's pretty cocky. 45 points plus is what you predicted.
Yeah.
You lost by 40 points plus. You
40.2
really
points.
made 100 points in this one. What the hell happened, Dave? Break this down for me, because this starts our recap for this week.
Yeah, I mean, you look at straight there, the middle of the lineup, my receivers, Robert Woods, Tyler Lockett. I mean, he had almost over 40 points or close to 40 points the week prior. I wasn't expecting that, but I was hoping for better than 9 points or better than 5 points. My tight ends, I made a mistake. I didn't want to have Noah Fant in my flex, but I forgot to change him until after that game on Thursday started. So
it wouldn't have made a difference. Paul drubbed you. Lamar Jackson, Adam Thielen, Odell Beckham, OBJ, Baker Mayfield.
Who saw that coming?
Showed up to the game. I told you, the Browns are going to come to play, and they did come to play, scoring 49 points against Dallas last week.
I mean, that's all Odell Beckham now. I mean, Baker Mayfield didn't have a strong game.
Hey, 38 points.
Nick Chubb got injured early.
Winning every game if you got one of your players scoring that many points.
Sure. I mean, that's yeah, I would agree.
Now, if I remember right, we did bet a shot on this.
Yeah, I did say that. So, I got some tequila here. So,
is that a shot of water?
It's tequila. Hopefully my prediction for this week goes better, because I will make another prediction this week, and it's going to be a good one. It's going to be a good one. But, Paul, congratulations. Good win. We'll see what happens next week or this week.
There we go. That's being made. That's being lost. Moving along.
It's terrible.
Everyone thought they were going to come out of that trade on top of the league, and what the hell happened? None of his players showed up. Devontae Adams, a big zero. Julio Jones, nowhere to be found all week. Killer Tomatoes ran away with this one. Dave, what are your thoughts?
I mean, I think UK Bills I think that's the lowest outpoint scoring of points so far this season, in this young season. Yeah, I mean, you look at it, I mean, it was a tough week. I think it was a tough week for UK Bills with the Tennessee game being postponed, but that's the life of a GM fantasy football team, right? You got to be able to make do and update and go with the punches. And to his credit, I'm surprised he got 80 points, more than 80 points. But yeah, I mean, that big trade, the trade, so much debate. I mean,
and let's talk about Joe Mixon, though. Joe Mixon, 4.1 points. He was the leader of the pack this week when it came to fantasy scoring. Where did he come from? And I've been talking trash about Joe Mixon all year long.
Yeah, I mean, I used to have Joe Mixon on my team. I traded him to Killer Tomatoes before the season started. And he hasn't really done well. Could this be his coming up party? Who knows? But kudos to Killer Tomatoes for getting an impressive win with having one of the starting receivers do nothing in that game.
Moving along, Bennett like Beckham scored. I think this was the high score of the week. Almost 200 points. Right. Delvin Cook, a huge showing. Amari Cooper now leading the league for wide receivers in points. And then George Kittle. Man, everyone went off for Chris this week. And then Anton, I feel bad for the guy on the other end of this, just taking it. I don't know what else he can do. Aaron Rodgers had a good game for him. Mike Davis had a good game for him. But, I mean, you can't come close to that roster that Chris assembled this week.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you have two scores in the 30s, one in the 40s, one in the upper 20s. I mean, yeah, it's a recipe for a great team. 199 points, ain't no laughing matter. Another blowout loss for Team Anton, and the trend's going to continue as the season goes older.
Tough loss for him.
Yeah.
The Muppets versus itty bitty tight end by committee. They go to 3-1. Their only loss to you. I slipped to 2-2 here. Even on my own end, I thought my team played well. Still, I think probably in the top half in points this week, but just wasn't enough to take out the tight end committee. Dak Prescott, another amazing game. I think he's leading the league in passing right now. And then Josh Allen, who's not far behind him. Aaron Jones, leading the league in rushing, I believe, as well. So he's got a bunch of studs, and he's got a team ready to move forward to the playoffs, I think.
Yeah, I've said it before. I told you off camera today, he's got one of the best lineups in the league. It'll be interesting to see how he works out this Austin Eckler being gone for the next few weeks. But certainly he's in first place in our division. Personally, I think we should, if there's a tie break, if there's a tie for 3-1, we should do head-to-head. But hey, I don't make the rules. It's whoever has the most points gets a tiebreaker. And he's been the highest scoring, best team in the league the last 3 weeks. I mean, yeah, I beat him in week 1, but there's been no better team besides him since.
Let's see if he can keep it up. Now, so I won't get fined here. Another loss. But I thought his team put together a good showing, which we've sort of been like predicting for the last few weeks. His team's gonna have a good showing. Finally, he gets it, but Double D still outscoring them.
Yeah, I mean, you look at this team. There was some debate on whether or not he was tanking for the future or whatever was going on when these trades were made. But I mean, he has yet to even come close to having the lowest score of any week so far. He's putting together some good quality showings, but his matchups, tough matchups, right? He just seems to be getting the bad luck of playing teams that are getting hot. And last week when he played me, Alvin Kamara had like 50 fantasy points and he still lost. I want to see him get his first win. This is like when the Detroit Lions were like 0-11, 0-12. You want to see them win. You want to see them get that first win. So I'm rooting for him to eventually get a win here.
0-4, I think he's due.
Yeah, I agree.
Looking at the top scorers this week now, we got Dak Prescott leading the league with 142 fantasy points. Now, do you think he gets MVP consideration toward the end of the year?
I don't think so. Because he's throwing almost 50, 60 passes a game. And when you're throwing for that much, just on average, your yardage are going to be higher. He's only got, I think, 9 touchdowns, right? Like 9 touchdowns into 3 interceptions. I mean, that's not terrible. But you look at the 2 guys behind him, Russell Wilson, Josh Allen. I mean, Russell Wilson right now, in my opinion, is MVP. The guy can, you look at Josh Allen, he's a dual threat, which is great and everything. So is Russell Wilson. And Russell Wilson, I mean, is there any better quarterback right now in the NFL than Russell Wilson? In my opinion, I don't think there is.
And then taking a look at the running backs, you have Kamara, Jones, Cook, Elliott. You always expect Elliott to be in the top 5 there, but does it surprise you that he's so far down on this list?
Yeah, he's not really doing all that well, especially for the contract he signed. What was it, before last season? It seems like he might have slowed down. He lost stuff. Maybe he's eating too much cereal. I don't know. I mean, it seems like he's kind of lost his spark. I would hope that he can turn it around. Or this thing's when your quarterback is throwing it 60 times a game, your running back's not going to get too many touches, right? So something needs to change with.
The big trouble there is that Dallas defense.
Oh, terrible! It's one of the worst defenses I've ever seen. They're terrible. They're absolutely terrible.
And this week, I'm not sure who Dallas plays. Offhand, I'm actually looking down the list here. They're playing the New York Giants, so they should get a little bit of a break.
Yeah,
this week.
Playing Danny Dimes, they should get a little bit of a morale boost against that offense, but especially with their top Sterling Shepard being out. But we'll see.
Yeah, and then looking at the wide receivers, Amari Cooper, number 1. Does that surprise you?
No. Now, when his quarterback is throwing it 60 times a game, again, he's all the receivers. If you have a Dallas receiver on your team, they're starting almost every game.
Lamb also doing well.
Yeah, you have to.
Doing
especially
well.
when you're in a PPR league, you have to start those guys. I will say that the name that does kind of surprise me that's up there in the top 5, and I'm not trying to take anything away from him, is Stephon Diggs. It's because you're not used to a Buffalo Bills wide receiver being in the top 5.
Right.
And not taking anything away from Stephon Diggs. He's a great receiver, especially what they gave up for him. But I wasn't expecting him to have his success this early on, that's for sure.
Possibly the most underrated position in the game. Any surprise here that Travis Kelce's number 1?
No, not at all. He's arguably the best tight end in the game. George Kittle, had he been healthy, might be up there too as well. The Green Bay tight end, Robert Tonyan.
Yeah.
Certainly that's a surprise. He has probably
he just had a huge game last week.
Yeah,
I don't know if that's really.
That's not going to be sustained.
Yeah.
So Higbee, I like this. I think Higbee's probably got a good chance to sneak up there, but I think there's a big drop off between Travis Kelce and the rest of the tight ends at this point in time until Kittle gets a little bit more time under his belt.
Right. Agreed. Looking at our records, I made up some ground this week.
Well, the one game you were
Yeah. All I needed was to win that one game. So
right.
Now we're both at 8-7 moving forward. We've got some interesting matchups this week too. Do you want to take a look at those now, or do you want to harp on your losing week here?
I had a winning week. I was 3-2. You were just one game better at 4-1. We said at the end of the show last week that we had every game with the exception of mine and Paul's game the same. So we knew that it was either going to be I was going to take a 2-game lead or I was going to get tied up. So we're sitting at 8-7 apiece. We'll see what happens this week.
All right, moving along to our predictions for this week. The first game here, we have Chris's Bend It Like Beckham Jr.
Mm-hmm.
Itty bitty tight end by committee. And what I'm really surprised about here is the projections. But then again, he does have Aaron Jones in the lineup when he's on a bye this week.
Right. Yeah, and he doesn't have any other running backs on his roster. He doesn't have anybody in the flex. So I'm hoping for Ben's sake that he picked up Mark Ingram earlier today. I would assume he's got maybe a trade in the works or a waiver offer that he's waiting on.
He's got some options down here. You can shift some players around, but
he doesn't have any other running backs. Aaron Jones, He needs another running back, and he only got one right now. So I would assume he's going to make a move there. He makes that move. I think you're getting close to projection of an even match here, but again, I think the itty-bitty tight end by committee, as much as I hate to admit it, and I've been doing it for the last 2 weeks, this is a train that's going to be hard to stop. Injury is the only thing that can stop it. Maybe COVID. I don't know. I'm taking itty-bitty on this one.
You know what? I'm actually going to bet against the biddies and go with Bend It Like Beckham. This is definitely our primetime matchup. 2 3-1 teams. So, I'm going with Bend It. And you're going with Itties. I just think he's got a strong team. Chris has a strong team. George Kittle, you have no idea how he's going to go off. Amari Cooper, same thing. Delvin Cook. I just think there's a lot of strength on that offense, a lot of high firepower that just can't be matched on the other side.
Yeah, it's going to be a good one for sure. Looking forward to that game.
Alex and the UK Bills against Matt, and so I won't get fined. You think Matt's finally going to come up with a win this week? This is the trade game, by the way.
Yeah, this is the game. This is the two teams that were involved in those trades. I'm looking at these projections, the 12-point spread. But you know what? I think he's finally going to get it. I think he's finally going to get this W, and I think between Ben Roethlisberger and Justin Herbert is going to have himself a game. He had himself a game last week, right, against Tampa Bay. I think he's going to have himself a game again. Justin Herbert, this is the real deal. I think Justin Herbert is he's a friend. He's had 2 games or whatever, but great arm. He's athletic. Love Justin Herbert. So
I'm taking Alex. You're taking Matt. I don't think Matt's gonna be able to pull this one off. I think it will be close though, but I just don't think he's gonna be able to pull it off. I think Gardner Minshew's due for a good game. Mark Andrews always has a good game, and let's see how the Steelers can do on basically what was a bye week for them.
Sure.
I think there's a lot of options there for Alex and the UK Bills. That is, of course, if Tennessee actually does play on Tuesday.
Yeah, that's a big if. Big if.
Dave, let's break this one down. It's your team versus Anton's team. We still have a bet going that Anton's going to win at least, what is it, 3 games or 4?
The line is 3.5.
3.5.
I had under, you had the over.
I got the over, you got the under. I don't think he's pulling out a win this time around. I think your team's just too strong, and you've gotten better over the weeks too. And looking right down the comparison advantage, you've got a landslide here. But this is fantasy football. You never know what can happen.
Yeah, I think a lot is riding on what Anton's team with his Garoppolo and Morset, both questionable. Who knows if they're going to play? If neither of those guys play, and he's got Phillip Rivers on the bench, and I forget what other running back he's got on the bench there. We'll see what happens with that. And of course, let's see, we've got Montgomery.
He still does have Diggs on the bench.
Right. So we'll see what happens with that. I mean, I think if he puts Diggs and puts Montgomery in there, or even Jonnu Smith on there, I think his projection would go up. But there's a lot riding on Garoppolo and Morset, or Morster, whatever his name is. We talked about this week.
Yeah, you haven't been able to get that all season.
I think it's going to be very interesting. I think what this might come down to is that San Francisco game is who gets more touches, who is the more featured back. Is it McKinnon, or is it Morster? I'm never going to say his name right. Because I have McKinnon, he has the other guy. That could be the difference. Who is going to be the featured back? Who's going to get more touches? McKinnon played great last week. I told you last week, the weeks before, I'm never betting against myself. So I'm going to win this prediction, less than 10 points.
All right. 2 more games to go. Me versus Rob's Killers Tomatoes. Rob's had a good couple of weeks last week. Just, right? He's had a good couple of weeks. Or was that Chris that I was thinking about? Where's Rob here? Yeah, Rob had 140 points last week. I think he's on a 2-game win streak.
Yeah, I mean, you look at Rob's team. I mean, Carson Wentz and Ryan Fitzpatrick, we talked about this last week because of Newton getting injured. Those guys are either going to be, for the most part, decent fantasy quarterbacks, 15, maybe 20 points, or they're going to throw 5 interceptions and absolutely doom you. They did decent last week. So a lot's going to be riding on Killer Tomatoes with his quarterbacks. I think the rest of his lineup is perfectly fine. It's really going to be riding on that defense for Killer Tomatoes. I'm going to say, though, I mean, Russell Wilson, he was my MVP. Mike Evans, he's questionable, big question mark there. I don't know if you're going to move him out of your lineup tonight or you're going to keep him in there. I'm going Muppets.
Active, so he's
active. Yeah. I'm going Muppets on this one.
Yeah, I really like the way my team's setting up right now. I don't want to jinx myself, but I am going to take my team. I think it will be a close one. I'm just still a Joe Mixon hater. And even though he had a big week last week, I need to see more from Mixon to make him trustworthy to get me on board with him. I think he's a hell of a talent. I just don't know if Cincinnati can use him right.
So one question the inquiring minds want to know is there are rumors, there's speculation that GM Sean O'Brien, brother of Bill O'Brien, is shopping DeAndre Hopkins. Any truth to that?
I mean, Bill O'Brien no longer there. So that's another thing. That's another storyline that I want to watch is, can Houston finally get some offense going now that idiot Bill O'Brien's out of it?
Well, my question for you is, you are the GM for the Muppets. You have DeAndre Hopkins on your team. There's been rumors swirling around that you're looking to move DeAndre Hopkins. Is there any truth to that?
I'm always open to hearing out trade options and trade offers and discussing those with other teams in the league, but I can't comment on specific players that may or may not be on the clock. Just give me a call. You have my number.
Fair enough.
The last game of the week, Double D versus Paul. You all look so dumb. This is going to be a close game. I think it really depends on whose players can have a big time, like 30, 40 point game.
Right. Yeah, I mean, Double D's
both these teams. I think all of these players have the ability to be able to do that.
Yeah, I'd agree. Double D has a sneaky good team. He is right. I mean, he's first in his division. You look at Paul's team. It says he's fourth in the Bum division, but that, I mean, he's one game out, right? He's right there.
Yep.
I think this is the game of the week. I think this game is going to be the highest scoring game between both teams. I mean, I underestimated Paul last week. I'm not going to do it again. Still think Paul loses this game, but I think he loses it at a reasonable amount. I'm going with Double D to win this one.
You know what? I don't like betting against Double D, but sometimes you got to take a risk. And I'm doing it here this week. Paul's going to come away with the win. And I just think Lamar Jackson's going to have a hell of a week against Cincinnati. Teddy Bridgewater against Atlanta. Atlanta's just not been good defensively over probably the last, like, forever. I can't remember the last time Atlanta was ever good defensively. So I think that Paul has the tools to be able to come up with a win here, but I will say it's going to be close.
Yeah, absolutely. Should be an interesting one. I think this is going to be the best game of the week.
And then finally, wrapping up everything here, you are taking, in this situation, you're taking Ben.
Nowicki versus Sad. Yep, I'm taking Sad.
I'm taking Alex, and you're taking Matt. So far, 2 differences.
You gotta switch it up though. You swap the.
Oh yeah. There we go. And then here's our probably only same.
Yeah.
Actually, we both picked myself here.
Mm-hmm.
And then finally we have Paul and Derek, and we're flipped on here. So I think we could make some one of us could make some headway this week.
Yeah, and you have it swapped again. I picked Derek, you picked Paul. Yeah, I think that this has the potential to I mean, if you hit on all yours, you have a pretty good size. You have a 2-game lead. Well, one of us will potentially have a 2-game lead. We'll see what happens. But also another thing I want to touch on real quick before we end here is we have a bet within the whole league about who will have the most points at the end of the season. So let's touch on, let's see what those standings, if you can pull it up here, Shawn. I want to see what these standings are through 1/4 of the way through the season.
Mm-hmm. 1/4 of the way, we've got, and this is probably the standings to go by here.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously everything comes down to wins and losses until the playoffs. But
that's you gotta make sure you
have Itty Bitty, your team, Bend It, Double D. Those are your top 5, and we have 6 entering the playoffs. So I have that last wild card spot currently, I believe, unless Paul's team is beating me out in points.
Yeah, that's what I want to look at is the points. So you actually have to. There you go.
And yeah, I've got the 2nd most points in the league. So I currently hold that wild card position, but it's still really early in the season to
It is.
Even though we're a quarter of the way through.
My question for you is, you look at the top 4 teams there, Itty Bitty, Muppets, Double D, my team. We're all pretty close. I mean, any given week that can flip-flop real quick. But then you look at UK Bills. I mean, he's almost 200 points behind Itty Bitty Committee. Do you think at this point in time UK Bills is out of the running for the points total?
I can't knock them out, even though you're right, almost 200 points behind the first place team. So, I think it's kind of funny that a few weeks ago we had that whole trade debacle, and yet the team that everyone thought was going to be the beneficiary of this is in dead last in points. Yeah, I think that goes to show that trades don't need vetoes ever. It's just another discussion to have in the off season. I think we're all in it to win it. So make the trades, make them happen. We love
trades. I love making things interesting. The rules that we have set aside, those will be discussed in the offseason to see what we can do to make this league better. But yeah, the moves, the trades, all that stuff. I mean, let it happen. Let's have some fun with this, because at the end of the day, it's fantasy football here. I know we all want to win money, but at the end of the day, we're also here to have fun. So,
so here's your projected playoff bracket. Quarter of the way through the season, I've got to say this is probably down between Itty Bitty and maybe your team. I don't know if we would see both bye teams make it to the championship. That rarely happens. Otherwise, I'd pick Double D here, but.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be tough, especially as the inevitable happens of more games being postponed and pushed back to different weeks. That's something that you got to keep in mind, how that's going to affect. What if a game that was supposed to happen in week 2 or week 5 is going to happen in week 12, and then all the injuries? Is an interesting season for more than one reason, but I'm looking forward to the rest of this season. I'm looking forward to getting a W over Anton's mom.
Is Anton your rival now? I think he is. I think he's your main rival.
I mean, I don't know if I would say that. I mean, we're not in the same division, right? So
you can change that.
That could certainly be changed. But at the end of the day, I think everyone in this league is my rival. I'm not singling out any one team. Certainly some victories do taste better than other victories. Yeah. This victory will taste like, definitely when I win, it will taste like a nice, 15-year-old scotch, as opposed to when I beat you next week. That'll probably be like a cheap tequila, because, it's kind of a given that that's going to happen anyways. So.
Huge trash talk.
Next Biddiecast. Ooh, we're gonna have some fun on next week's Biddiecast.
One more thing before we leave you today. IR spots are now set.
Yes.
ESPN made some changes where we were allowed to change them, so now we don't have to go through that whole IR confusion either. The rosters are what they are, and if you cannot make a move within the rules that are given by ESPN, I think you and I are mostly laissez-faire on this.
Yeah. It's again, if you have a concern that a player might not be able to play in his scheduled game for any reason, look for a backup, make a waiver move, do what you got to do to make sure that your lineup is set.
All right, that's this week's Biddiecast. Join us next week for week 5 in review and week 6 preview. Take it away, Dave.
Yep. Until next week, guys, go fuck yourselves, and we'll see you soon.